at a fairly young age, I was put into a position where I really had to choose or look at priorities. And it wasn't the big house, fancy car anymore. It was more relationships and what I was really able to do.
I think you set a path for yourself and you have every intention of, these are the things I want to accomplish in life. And there are things that happen in life that change that direction, and this is just one of those for us.
I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis June of 1997. I was 32 years old, almost 33 years old. I had these, like a numb sensation on my right side of my body, or kind of my rib cage. And it felt, the way I describe it is almost like wax paper being over your skin and then to rub over the wax paper. So I can tell something's happening, but it's a very strange sensation. So that was the first thing that I had felt. Being diagnosed was scary. You were getting a lifelong diagnosis to something that I didn't understand, I wasn't expecting, and it was very scary. I did a lot of research. Greg and I, read things. We found a doctor up in Minneapolis that was known throughout the world who was an expert with MS, and we decided that we would get in as a patient there. So we took it upon ourselves to find the best person that we could to see, and that worked out really well. That first year, right after I was diagnosed, I lost use of my legs a little bit, balance and things, and I had to use these forearm crutches to get around for, I guess that was the first, so 98, summer of 98. And that was actually the year that our youngest daughter went off to kindergarten. And I can remember feeling, so singled out, and people saw me going into the school with this little girl using forearm crutches and getting through. That was hard for me. The appearance and the way that all looked, I didn't like that feeling. And that went away. Eventually I didn't need those anymore. That's that relapsing, remitting part of the disease, so that you'll have things happen and then they'll stop. So that was good, but I had a taste of the way life was going to be. I say it was probably about 10 years ago. I was doing physical therapy, and the therapist that I'd been working with had told me that she thought it was probably time to start looking at a power wheelchair. And I was very hesitant. I didn't like the idea. I felt like I was giving up. And she encouraged me to get measured and get all the commitment in to ordering it, and have the insurance company involved, all of those things. So we did it. The chair came, it sat in the dining room, and I didn't want to use it. So I was still using a walker and using a cane to try to get around. Well, when I finally did sit down and start using the power chair, I learned how much more I could get done. So it saved energy, it got me around safely, and I encourage other people when they start talking about using assistive aids that it's just a way to assist your life to do more and be able to do it safely. I'm totally sold on it, and I always listen to the physical therapist. Well, as far as the care that I get on a day-to-day basis, my primary caregiver is my husband, Greg. He helps with everything all day long, on and off. it's not constant, but it is constant. Just that think of it being in the back of his mind as far as what's happening with me, what is going to be needed next, or how he can help.
We've dealt with this kind of balancing. For me, it's been balancing. You got to be who you are. You got to be true to yourself, first of all, both of you, because you have to be, yourselves before you can be a couple. But then as you manage being a caretaker, it's so easy for that caretaker position to become something you're not. And then it kind of takes over because it dictates the necessity of what you need to do day to day. But if you sit back and start focusing on, your experience is a lot better, because you end up going down the path that you want as well, and it doesn't take you over, because the caretaker role is the caretaker role. Being the spouse is something completely different. If you allow them to melt into one another, I think it's going to be, or it is really easy to be bitter, and start to, have a pity party about, why us, why me, why, but we don't typically have that. We have a rule, is that you get 2 minutes for a pity party in our house, and then move on, because there's really no place for it. But it happens, you reflect on it. So I think that's a big part of it.
A few years ago, I needed to start looking into having care that we would actually pay to have people come in to help me in different situations. And it's scary and it's frustrating knowing that we have a plan of how life was going to go, but now the finances are all going to go in a different direction. And there's a guilt to it, even, of just knowing that I'm the one that is making that all change, even though it's not in my control. It is easy to take it upon yourself and just feel guilty about that happening. And I looked into having home care come in and the costs of it all involving, and deciding, okay, do I need 2 hours a week? Do I need 6 hours a week? Do we need 24/7? I'm fortunate we're not at that point yet, but that's because of my family and friends and the other support system that's going on. But if I was all by myself, I would need help a lot, probably 24/7. It's hard to admit, but that's the case. So, but it is what it is, and you just keep going forward with that. And my first experience that I had hiring this company to have someone come in, they sent someone in the morning so that they could come help me to get out of bed and get dressed and things. And the person that came was not even capable of getting me out of bed, just didn't know what to do. And that was really scary, frustrating for me as well, because I thought, now what am I going to do if I can't even call and have this hired in? What will happen? Will it have to be a professional, a nurse, physical therapist, or someone that's actually doing that help? And then how expensive is that going to be? That was borrowing a lot of trouble. It really wasn't necessary. What I needed was the agency to have the people come out and evaluate and get trained and train on how to help me. And it's worked out very well since then. But that being said, there are times too where the agency knows my situation. So if they need to call and rearrange a time for any of their clients or patients, they know that I'm someone who's just laying there waiting for them to come. So they don't have me be the first one on the list that's going to have to wait until tomorrow for someone to come. So that's been really helpful. I guess it's really important to be communicating what your needs are, because once they knew the need, they were, more than happy and more than capable of fulfilling the need. It was just that I hadn't really stressed what all needed to happen. I think part of that too is because it's hard to admit that you really need that much help. One of the other things, when I was first diagnosed, I can remember people saying, oh, you should go to a group. Oh, call the MS Society and find out this. Or you should go see my aunt or my friend, or, they have it. And those kind of different suggestions, which is sweet and wonderful. And I was scared to death. I did not want to see those people. I didn't want to see somebody in a chair. I didn't want to see somebody not being able to move or their head funny or those things, because that was really frightening to think that's the direction that I am going to be going. I did learn not everyone goes in the same direction, that MS has a different path for every single person who gets it. So I could have gotten a lot of probably good information if I wouldn't have been too nervous or afraid if I was going to see what life could be. I knew I didn't want to do that, so I chose not to do that. I do, when I hear of other people who are being diagnosed, and I know I'm that one in a chair now, I still encourage them and just say, come talk if you ever want to talk. It took a long time before I was here, and I've learned a lot of different things along the way. So just like what we talked about with using the power chair, it enables you use those tools so that you can do more things, live more life, have more value, all of those things. I did not have signs of depression when I was first diagnosed. I think there's the surprise and the disappointments and the scariness of what could happen. That was all there. I don't feel, though, that it was a actual depression feeling.
Catherine is one of just 50% of multiple sclerosis patients who has not experienced depression as part of her disease progression. Symptoms of depression can be classified in 3 areas: physical, emotional, and mental symptoms. Physical symptoms often include poor appetite, fatigue, and insomnia. Emotional symptoms often include feelings of worthlessness, guilt, and hopelessness, while mental symptoms often include indecisiveness and poor concentration. All 3 types of depression often impair the daily function and abilities of people suffering from depression. The process of diagnosing depression in multiple sclerosis patients is fairly difficult, as many symptoms for depression are identical to symptoms of multiple sclerosis. The Beck Depression Inventory is the most common process used by healthcare professionals to diagnose depression in all people. It was created by Dr. Aaron T. Beck in 1961. It has been revised twice since then and it is still used today. The survey consists of 21 questions that have multiple choice answers, translating the degree of depression severity into specific numbers. These questions cover a variety of topics, including sleeping habits, feelings of sadness or stress, and recent social interactions. The physicians are able to look at the raw results and collect numbered scores which directly translate to the degree of depression severity, which is modeled here in this diagram, showing that 0 to 13 indicates minimal levels of depression, while a 29 through 63 indicates severe depression. The 2 most common types of depression are major depression and dysthymia. As displayed by this model, major depression appears in episodes that are fairly severe compared to dysthymia, which is a long-term and less severe type of depression. When diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, many patients are not given proper care when it comes to their mental health. This can greatly affect the impact that depression has on their lives and the lives of those around them. This lack of assistance often leads to destructive habits with drugs, smoking, and alcohol, and even lead to gambling addictions. Physicians assisting multiple sclerosis patients are not currently required to offer mental health screenings unless depression concerns are raised by the patient. This often leads to worsened depression among multiple sclerosis patients. The best plan is for all patients to participate in mandatory depression surveys at the time of their diagnosis to allow physicians to identify and properly treat depression before it progresses. After learning that Catherine has never showed signs of depression throughout her journey with multiple sclerosis, I was curious to see what tools she's picked up along the way to deal with bad days and feeling frustrated.
As far as trying to stay positive, I think I'm really fortunate that I have that built in a little bit. I do get bummed out, and there's definitely sad times, and sometimes I just want to have a pity party. I've also really looked into different mindfulness and meditation kind of things. If you get a chance to just be quiet and really just think about what's important, you find it's not the stuff that you're all worked up about. I know that the disease is challenging. I know that things can change. It can feel really good right now, but it may not feel good later. So I think just accepting that nothing's permanent. It's life. We all have to deal with something. Mine's just more obvious than everybody else's.